After finishing off my reviews for the 4 cars to drop in October for Gran Turismo 7, it seemed like a refreshing palate cleanser to take a look at a car which was technically already in the game, but which is kind of more interesting than some of the added cars that we've been getting recently. The 1969, possibly one of the most iconic Mustangs of all, the Boss 429. Of course, John Wick's spec in terms of shape, and even for a non-Mustang fan like myself, I will freely admit, it's a pretty badass car. Now, in the game, it is of course, to the surprise of no one, a Hagerty collection car in the legendary dealership, but it's not that expensive. Last time I saw it come around, it was about $270,000, and of course that can go up and down, but that's not too bad of a price. That's still, what, like half the price of the recent Skyline that was added in the game? Which really does give you some perspective, at least based on raw performance. Now, speaking to that performance, of course the 429 cubic inch V8 gives you plenty of power, plenty of torque, 374 horses stock, so certainly very healthy even straight off the bat. The weight actually isn't too crazy either. It weighs just over 1,600 kilos, so there's a lot to work with there. And even the point level gives the car quite a bit of respect, because you'd probably assume most muscle cars would hover around the 440, maybe 450 point level. This one's actually close to 500, just under 495 in fact. And when you haven't done anything at all to it on those skinny classic tyres, the very restrictive gearbox, as you'll see here, especially when it comes to top speed, well, that means that these cars, just like any other classic car, especially from America in my opinion, is a wonderful blank canvas to work with. And I don't even just mean a canvas in the literal sense of being a good livery car, which it very well could be, I mean in terms of performance. I've said it before, I'll say it again. I think muscle cars, pony cars, classic American cars in a general sense are wonderful to tune, because they really are, for the most part, bathtubs to begin with. Even what was good back then just doesn't feel good for the most part by today's standards. They're a bit wallowy, the brakes don't tend to be that powerful, and the most obvious limiting factor is always the gearbox. They are so restricted on top-end speed and geared purely for acceleration, which is super fun in real life, but in the game 120 miles an hour from a 370 horsepower engine isn't really that useful. So, for example, if you take this car, slap a race gearbox in it, lower the ride height, stiffen up the springs, give it maybe a little bit more camber, maybe a touch of toe, put it on some nicer tyres and upgrade the brakes, well honestly you don't really need to do that much else, because straight off the bat you've just increased your top speed by probably 40-50 miles an hour at least. Your acceleration will be better as well, the cornering will be much more planted and focused, and the brakes will of course do probably twice as good of a job, if not better, at bringing you to a stop. Now the point level will jump, but probably not by quite as much as you'd think, and that is the exact reason why I used to love using cars like this. For me it was, I think the 70 shape Nova in Gran Turismo 6. I had mine tuned to like 500 points, and it was an absolute weapon. Even on the Nürburgring, it was such a good car. So if you solve those issues, very minimal power changes need to be done to make this thing a weapon. The classic Camaro is another perfect example, another pony car. The Camaro is naturally even lower in terms of its centre of gravity, doesn't wallow around quite as much as the bigger Mustang. So the beauty of these big classic American cars is you're working at such an immediate disadvantage that you can do more to it and almost like trick the point system in a funny kind of way. So although they're not to everyone's taste, and classics from any country definitely have an image of being not as good as modern cars, which in some cases is true, especially in real life, in the game, if you haven't already, I would urge you to try out driving and especially tuning more classics, because they are so responsive to it, and this is a perfect example of that. As it happens, this is already great to work with straight out of the box, so the fact that you can tune it and make it even better, well, it really does highlight why the point level is fairly high at nearly 500. Overall though, that's it for my thoughts on the Boss 429 Mustang. Drop your thoughts down below. Are you a fan of the car? Do you find it to be useful for maybe a particular event, or a particular track, or a point level? Or maybe if you don't like the car, tell me down below either way, and of course stick around on the channel for more reviews in future. And as some of you had noticed, there was a gap in uploads on the channel incidentally over the past 3 days or so. The reason for that is I was sorting out buying a new car, and the reveal of that will be dropping in the coming days on the channel as well, so I'm pretty excited for it. I'm loving the new car so far. It's kind of new but familiar, let's put it that way. If you already follow me on Instagram, you'll have seen what it is in my story, but yeah, it's a pretty nice one. I've moved on from the Golf R32 after 10 great months with it, and we'll see how the new one is. But stick around for that on the channel, and for more Gran Turismo 7 content, and until next time, I'll see you then. But for now, as always, thanks for watching.